Ahmed's life was a quiet rhythm of comfort and routine. Every morning, the sun spilled golden light over his small suburban street lined with maple trees and neat sidewalks. He took pride in his home, a modest 2-story house with a small patch of land beside it, a green sanctuary inherited from his late grandfather. That land wasn't just dirt or grass, it was a piece of his family's history. For years, Ahmed had nurtured the soil, planting fruit trees, flowers, and even a small vegetable garden. It was where his children learned about patience and growth. One warm evening, as Ahmed strolled around his neighborhood, something caught his eye. Bright yellow lines had been freshly painted across his beloved patch of land, transforming it into a makeshift parking area. Cars were already lined up, their engines humming softly, engines that would soon drown out the birdsong Ahmed cherished. He stopped in disbelief. His land, his private property, was now a crowded parking lot, heart pounding. Ahmed rushed back to his house and grabbed the flyer taped to the community bulletin board. It was a notice from the HOA, additional parking spaces for residents. Effective immediately, no signatures, no meeting minutes, no mention of any consent or consultation. Confusion turned to anger. How could the HOA take his land without his permission, without even a word? The next day, Ahmed decided to attend the monthly HOA meeting. He arrived early, nerves tangled with determination. The community hall was buzzing, neighbors chatting about the usual topics: garden contests, trash pickup schedules, until Ahmed's question changed the mood. Standing tall, he asked the HOA president, Mr. Franklin, "Why was my land taken without any notice or approval? This is my property." A heavy silence fell. Mr. Franklin's eyes flickered, and then he gave a tight smile. "Ahmed, the board voted on this last month to increase parking for the community. It's in everyone's best interest. But I never received any notice. I never agreed." Ahmed protested. Franklin waved a hand dismissively. "Sometimes, for the greater good, tough decisions must be made. We're all neighbors here." Ahmed's voice hardened. "This is theft, plain and simple." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some looked sympathetic. Others avoided eye contact. Just then, a man slipped into the room quietly and handed a thick, sealed envelope to Mr. Franklin. Ahmed caught the exchange from the corner of his eye. The president pocketed it quickly, ignoring Ahmed's stare, curiosity, and suspicion nod at Ahmed. What was in that envelope? A payoff, a secret deal. After the meeting, Ahmed followed Mr. Franklin outside, but was stopped by a group of board members who blocked his path. "Let it go, Ahmed," one warned, voice low. "You're making trouble where none exists." Trouble. Ahmed thought. It was more than trouble. It was injustice. Determined to uncover the truth, Ahmed returned home that night, scanning old documents and property deeds. The papers confirmed it was his land, clearly marked and never sold or leased. He stared at the parking lot, now buzzing with cars and chatter, feeling powerless. But he refused to be silenced. Deep down, Ahmed knew this was no simple parking dispute. The envelope, the silence, the secretive moves, something bigger was at play, a plan designed to force him out. And Ahmed was ready to fight back. But how do you fight an invisible enemy backed by power and money? As the streetlights flickered on, Ahmed made a silent vow. He would take the HOA to court and reclaim what was rightfully his, no matter what it took. The next morning, Ahmed woke to the sound of engines and tires crunching on gravel. The new parking lot buzzed with cars, neighbors arriving for work, friends visiting, all oblivious to the storm brewing beneath the surface. Ahmed's phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. "Be careful what you dig into." A chill ran down his spine. Who could it be? a warning, a threat. Determined not to be intimidated, Ahmed set out to gather evidence. First stop, the county records office hours later. As the fluorescent lights hummed overhead, Ahmed scanned pages of HOA documents. He found the board's vote on the parking expansion, but the signatures looked suspiciously forged. Some neighbors' names were there without their knowledge. Others had denied ever seeing the papers. That was the first crack in the HOA's facade. Back home, Ahmed reached out to Mrs. Patel, an elderly neighbor known for her sharp memory and years of involvement with the HOA. Over tea, she whispered, "There's been rumors for months. The board's been pushing for more control, more land. Some say they're trying to sell properties to developers." Ahmed's eyes widened. A secret deal? Could the envelope from the last meeting hold proof? Later that evening, he spotted a shadowy figure lurking near the HOA president's house. The man was hurriedly loading boxes into a black SUV, Ahmed's. Heart pounded was this evidence, but when Ahmed tried to get closer, the figure disappeared into the night. The next day, Ahmed's own neighbors began acting strangely. Some avoided him, others offered weak smiles. One neighbor, Sam, finally pulled him aside. "Ahmed, you need to be careful. The board's powerful. They have lawyers and money. Fighting them won't be easy." Ahmed clenched his fists. "I'm not backing down." But that night, his house was vandalized, windows smashed, garden trampled. A note was left behind, "Stop digging or else." Fear crept in, but so did resolve. Ahmed realized he was up against more than just a greedy HOA board. It was a network of secrets, threats, and corruption. His only choice was to gather allies, find proof, and expose the truth. But could he do it before it was too late? Or would the shadows swallowing his neighborhood claim him next? Ahmed woke up to the dull ache of a sleepless night. The vandalism was no longer just a message, it was a warning shot. But giving up was never an option. He knew he needed help. His first call was to his old college friend, Aisha, now a sharp-witted lawyer specializing in property rights and community disputes. When he explained the situation, her voice hardened. "Ahmed, this smells like a dirty game. If the HOA is forging documents and threatening you, we need evidence and fast." Together, they planned a strategy. First, Ahmed would secretly record the next HOA meeting to catch any lies or shady deals on tape. Second, they would canvass the neighborhood to find others who might have been wronged. The next HOA meeting was tense. Ahmed arrived early, his phone discreetly recording the proceedings. The room buzzed with polite smiles, masking simmering tension. Mer Franklin, the HOA president, presented a glowing report on the new parking expansion, claiming it had community approval. But when Ahmed questioned the validity of the signatures, the room shifted uneasily. Suddenly, Mr. Franklin snapped, "Enough. This meeting is over." As people began to leave, Ahmed approached Mrs. Patel, who nervously handed him a folded piece of paper. "I have seen this before," she whispered. "It's the real voting record, not what they show you." Ahmed unfolded it carefully. The signatures were authentic, but the date was from 2 years ago, long before this parking project started. This was proof that the recent vote was fabricated. At that moment, the lights flickered and went out, plunging the room into darkness. Panic swept through the crowd. When the lights returned, the document was gone from Ahmed's hand. A heavy silence fell. Eyes darted, but no one admitted to taking it. Later, outside the community hall, Ahmed confronted Mr. Franklin. "Who took it?" The president's smile was cold. "You're poking a sleeping bear, Ahmed. Stop now or face the consequences." Before Ahmed could reply, a black car sped by, splashing mud onto his shoes. It was a warning, clear and deliberate. Determined, Ahmed and Aisha mapped out their next moves. They needed more than documents, they needed undeniable proof of the HOA's corruption. That night, Ahmed's phone buzzed again. This time, it was a video message from an unknown sender. The shaky footage showed Mr. Franklin meeting with a man in a dark parking garage, exchanging a briefcase. Ahmed's heart raced. This was the evidence they needed, but why send it anonymously? And was it a trap? As he replayed the video, the doorbell rang. He peeked through the window. No one was there. Just a small envelope on the doorstep. Inside, a single card read, "We're watching. Back off." Ahmed's hands trembled, not from fear, but determination. He knew the fight was far from over. The threat on Ahmed's doorstep echoed in his mind as he sat across from Aisha at his kitchen table. "They're watching us, Ahmed. This isn't just about parking anymore. It's about control, and they won't stop until you're silenced." Ahmed clenched his jaw. "Then I guess I have to be louder." Their plan was risky. Ahmed would attend the upcoming HOA board meeting in disguise to gather first-hand evidence. Aisha would work behind the scenes, pulling legal strings and rallying community support. The night of the meeting arrived. Ahmed slipped on a hoodie and cap, trying to mask his face. The community hall was buzzing with familiar faces, but Ahmed felt like a stranger in his own neighborhood. Inside, Mr. Franklin took the floor with his usual confidence. He spoke of progress and community unity, carefully ignoring Ahmed's persistent questions about the land dispute. Ahmed's phone discreetly recorded everything. Then, suddenly, a power outage plunged the hall into darkness. Panic rippled through the crowd. In the confusion, Ahmed felt a sharp shove from behind. He stumbled, but caught himself. Someone whispered harshly, "Leave now, or you'll regret it." Ignoring the warning, Ahmed steadied his voice and said, "This is my land. You stole it without consent. The community deserves the truth." The lights flickered back on, and Mr. Franklin's smile had vanished, replaced by a cold glare. "You're out of line." Before Ahmed could respond, security personnel moved to escort him outside. The night air was sharp. Ahmed's phone buzzed again, a message from an anonymous source. "Meet me." Midnight, the old community center. Curiosity and caution battled inside him. Was this another trap, or the breakthrough he needed? At midnight, Ahmed approached the abandoned community center. Shadows stretching long across the cracked pavement. The door creaked open, revealing a figure cloaked in darkness. The stranger stepped forward, pulling down their hood. It was Mrs. Patel. "I've seen too much to stay silent," she said quietly. "The whole board has been selling off community land piece by piece. Your parking lot was just the start. They're planning to hand over more property to a developer linked with organized crime." Ahmed's heart pounded. This was beyond anything he'd imagined. She handed him a flash drive. "Everything is on here: emails, contracts, recordings. But be careful. They're watching." Before he could say anything, headlights flooded the street. A black SUV screeched to a halt. Men in dark suits spilled out, eyes scanning the area. "Go." Mrs. Patel hissed, pulling Ahmed into the shadows. They vanished into the night as the SUV's doors slammed shut. Ahmed realized the fight wasn't just about land anymore. It was a battle against a dangerous, powerful enemy who would stop at nothing. And now, he was right in the lion's den. Ahmed's heart pounded as he and Mrs. Patel darted through the back alleys, the roar of the black SUV fading behind them. The flash drive felt heavy in Ahmed's pocket, a tiny beacon of hope, and a ticking time bomb. Back at his house, he plugged the drive into his laptop. Files, emails, and voice recordings flooded the screen, proof of the HOA's secret deals. forged documents, and conversations with shadowy developers. The more he saw, the deeper the corruption. But with every revelation came a cold wave of fear. The men chasing him weren't just bullies. They were well-connected, dangerous. Ahmed called Aisha immediately. "We have what we need. This could bring the whole board down." Her voice was calm but urgent. "Good, but you're not safe. We need to plan our next move carefully." That night, Ahmed barely slept. Every creak outside made him flinch. The threats weren't just words anymore. They had escalated to real danger. 2 days later, while Ahmed was at work, his home was broken into. Nothing stolen except the laptop containing the flash drive data. Gone. He returned to a shuttered window and an empty desk. His stomach churned. Someone was sending a clear message: stop now, or lose everything. At the next HOA meeting, Ahmed arrived with a mix of dread and defiance. The community hall was packed. Whispers filled the room. As the meeting began, Mr. Franklin smiled smugly, unaware that Ahmed had already made a copy of the flash drive and sent it to a trusted journalist. Friend. Ahmed stood and demanded the floor. "This community deserves the truth. The board has been lying, stealing, and threatening its residents." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Murr. Franklin's eyes narrowed. "Lies and slander. If you have proof, show it. Otherwise, be quiet." Suddenly, the journalist burst in, flashing his phone, the evidence now public online. Screens across the room lit up with damning emails and recordings. Chaos erupted. Before security could react, the front doors slammed shut and locks clicked. Panic set in. Mr. Franklin's face went pale. From the back of the room, a new voice echoed, cold, authoritative. "You're all under investigation." A squad of officials stepped in, flashing badges. It was a raid. Ahmed realized this was bigger than he'd imagined, a crackdown not just on the HOA, but on the corrupt network behind it. As officers led the board members away, Mr. Franklin glared at Ahmed. "This isn't over." Outside, reporters swarmed Ahmed, cameras flashing. But deep down, Ahmed knew the battle had just begun. And somewhere, in the shadows, darker forces were already plotting their next move. The sun rose over the neighborhood, casting long shadows on the streets Ahmed had fought so hard to protect. The raid had rocked the community. The HOA board was in custody. Their secrets splattered across headlines. For a moment, it felt like justice was within reach. But Ahmed knew better than to celebrate. Days after the arrests, strange things began happening. His phone rang constantly with silent calls. His emails were hacked. At work, his computer froze with mysterious messages. This is just the beginning. One evening, as Ahmed returned home, he found a sleek black car parked outside. The driver's window rolled down, revealing a familiar face: Mr. Carlson, a once trusted HOA member who had kept quiet all along. "Ahmed," Carlson said calmly, "you may have won this battle, but the war is far from over." Before Ahmed could respond, Carlson handed him an envelope and walked away without another word. Inside the envelope was a single sheet of paper with one phrase: "The land isn't the prize. It's the beginning." Ahmed's mind raced. What could it mean? His investigations. His fight was bigger than just stolen land. There was an unseen agenda driving the HOA's actions. Determined to uncover the truth, Ahmed and Aisha dug deeper into the flash drive's files and recent transactions. What they discovered shocked them: a hidden plan to transform the entire neighborhood into a high-end commercial development. Not just parking lots, but shopping centers, luxury condos, and gated complexes. The land that once belonged to families like Ahmed's was being sold off, piece by piece, to corporate interests. And the HOA was only the surface. Behind it all stood a powerful real estate mogul with ties to the city's elite and whispers of underworld connections. The man's influence stretched far and wide enough to manipulate courts, silence whistleblowers, and crush opposition. Ahmed realized he wasn't just fighting a corrupt HOA board anymore. He was up against a network that could swallow his entire community whole. That night, as Ahmed reviewed the files, he heard a noise downstairs. Footsteps. His heart stopped. Someone was inside his house. He grabbed his phone and crept toward the staircase. Suddenly, a shadow moved in the dark. A figure lunged. Ahmed reacted quickly, wrestling the intruder to the ground. In the dim light, he recognized the face of a familiar neighbor who had always seemed friendly. Confused and shaken, Ahmed asked, Why would you do this? The man's eyes were cold. I'm sorry, Ahmed. They made me do it. If you want to survive, stop now. Before Ahmed could say more, the man slipped from his grasp and fled into the night. Ahmed stood alone in his shattered home, more determined than ever. If friends could turn into foes, who could he truly trust? And as the shadows closed in, Ahmed realized the true cost of fighting for justice. Ahmed's world was unraveling. The man he thought was a friend had turned against him, and the enemies lurking in the shadows seemed endless. But surrender was not in his nature. The next morning, Ahmed sat at his kitchen table, exhausted and weary. His phone buzzed a message from an unknown number. If you want to survive, meet me at the old mill. Midnight. Alone. Despite every warning ringing in his mind, Ahmed knew he had no choice but to go. The fight was bigger than him now, and perhaps the stranger held a piece of the puzzle. At midnight, Ahmed approached the old, abandoned mill on the outskirts of town. The air was thick with mist, and the creaking of rusted machinery echoed around him. His footsteps were cautious, every nerve alert. Suddenly, a figure stepped from the shadows, a woman, sharp-eyed and calm. I'm Nadia, she said. I used to work with the developer behind all this. I left when I saw what they were doing. You stirred the hornet's nest, Ahmed. They want to break you. Ahmed studied her carefully. Could he trust her? I know who's behind the corruption, Nadia continued. And I have proof. She handed Ahmed a thick folder filled with documents, contracts, emails, bank transfers linking the mogul to illegal land deals, bribery, and intimidation tactics. This is enough to bring them down, Nadia said, but it's dangerous. They have eyes everywhere. Before Ahmed could respond, they heard footsteps. Figures appeared at the mill's entrance, to men, moving fast and armed. Get down. Nadia hissed at Ahmed, and Nadia dove behind an old machine as bullets shattered metal around them. The chase was on. They sprinted through the mill's shadowy corridors, dodging and weaving. Their pursuers relentless. Finally, they burst out into the cold night air and didn't stop running until they reached Ahmed's car. Breathless, Ahmed turned to Nadia. Why help me? Because if they win, no one in this town is safe, she said grimly. You're not just fighting for your land anymore, you're fighting for everyone. With Nadia's evidence and her insider knowledge, Ahmed felt a renewed sense of hope. But as they planned their next move, Ahmed's phone buzzed again. A message, simple and chilling. We know where you are. The war was far from over, and the shadows were closing in faster than ever. Ahmed's hands trembled as he stared at the message. We know where you are. The threat wasn't vague anymore. The enemy was closing in fast. With Nadia by his side, Ahmed knew there was no turning back. Together, they gathered the explosive evidence, the documents, recordings, and videos ready to hand over to the authorities and the media. But first, they needed a safe place to meet with the investigative journalists. They arranged to meet at a nearby cafe, crowded but public, a place where surprises wouldn't catch them off guard. As Ahmed and Nadia walked in, the tension was electric. Reporters quickly surrounded them, cameras flashing. The moment was finally here. Nadia handed over the files, and the journalists immediately started digging, preparing to expose the corrupt network that had ruined so many lives. Just then, the cafe doors slammed open. Mr. Franklin, flanked by two intimidating men, strode in, face twisted with rage. "You think you can ruin me?" he snarled. "This ends now." But before he could get closer, the cafe doors burst open again. This time, local police and federal agents flooded in, led by none other than Ahmed's sister, Sarah, a high-ranking FBI agent. "Mr. Franklin, you're under arrest," Sarah declared. "Your crimes are exposed, and the evidence is irrefutable." The room erupted in chaos as Franklin and his men were handcuffed and led away. Ahmed's heart pounded with relief and disbelief. Justice had finally caught up. In the following weeks, the community began healing. Land was returned, and new, transparent leadership took charge of the HOA. Ahmed stood on his reclaimed property, watching neighbors return to their homes with smiles. But just as peace seemed restored, Ahmed's phone buzzed once more. A new message flashed on the screen. "Congratulations. But the game is never over." A chill ran down Ahmed's spine. The fight for justice had won this battle, but in a world of power and corruption, the war was eternal. And Ahmed knew he'd be ready. The end.